The Canadian government dropped a massive immigration bomb that completely blocks certain Asian countries, and the suffering is heartbreaking. Find out which nations are dealing with this cruel punishment where their citizens can no longer escape to Canada for better opportunities. Number 10. Uzbekistan. Hidden in the heart of Central Asia, Uzbekistan found itself at the center of an unexpected controversy with Canada in 2025. Canadian universities, once buzzing with eager Uzbek students, suddenly faced a wave of scrutiny after a shocking surge in document fraud was uncovered. The news spread fast. Several high-profile cases revealed fake academic credentials, causing a ripple effect that stunned both nations. Legitimate students who had worked hard for their dreams watched helplessly as suspicion clouded every new application. This situation left many asking how something so promising had spiraled so quickly. For years, Uzbek scholars were known for their strong ambition and commitment to education. Canadian institutions welcomed them with open arms, seeing the partnership as a bridge between cultures and knowledge. That all changed overnight as news of the crackdown hit headlines across both countries. Students who had planned their futures around studying in Canada suddenly faced closed doors with little hope of reversing the ban anytime soon. Families back in Uzbekistan were left devastated, having invested their savings and hopes in a now uncertain future. The story didn't stop there. The Canadian education sector, which prided itself on international diversity, began to feel the pinch from fewer overseas enrollments. Debates swirled among policymakers. Should all students pay the price for the mistakes of a few? As authorities worked to restore trust, many wondered if this tough lesson would push both nations to tighten their systems and root out bad actors, or if a new wave of young Uzbek minds would simply look elsewhere for opportunity. The spotlight on Uzbekistan was intense, but the future remained a mystery. Number 9. Bangladesh. In South Asia's crowded cities, hope and ambition drive millions forward. But in 2025, Bangladesh's relationship with Canada took a dramatic turn. News broke that human trafficking networks were using Canada as a transit point, sending shockwaves through both countries. Canadian authorities, alarmed by the scale and sophistication of these operations, acted quickly and imposed a sweeping ban. Families separated by continents found themselves unable to reunite, while the thriving garment trade between the two nations suddenly faced new barriers. The decision left many in disbelief, wondering how trusted pathways could be exploited so dangerously. As the ban set in, countless Bangladeshis with dreams of a better life felt the impact immediately. Students, professionals, and families who had played by the rules watched their plans dissolve overnight. The garment industry, which had built close ties with Canadian retailers, scrambled to navigate the fallout, with both workers and businesses caught in the crossfire. Communities in both countries rallied for better solutions, arguing that a blanket ban punished the innocent along with the guilty. Amid protests and heated debates, calls grew louder for smarter law enforcement and more cooperation. The effects rippled far beyond airports and shipping docks. Trust between Bangladesh and Canada, once anchored by shared goals and mutual benefit, was put to the test. As the weeks passed, it became clear that repairing this bond would take more than policy changes. It would require new levels of understanding and transparency. In the eyes of many, this crisis was not just about borders but about people, families, and futures on both sides of the world. The world watched, waiting to see what lessons both nations would learn. Number 8. Sri Lanka. From the turquoise coasts of Sri Lanka to the bustling streets of Toronto, a wave of unexpected asylum claims reshaped Canada's policies in 2025. Reports showed a dramatic rise in applications, many of which Canadian authorities deemed unfounded. The sudden spike overwhelmed immigration offices, sparking headlines and fierce debates across both countries. Seasonal worker programs that once relied on Sri Lankan talent faced immediate shortages, with Canadian farmers scrambling to fill gaps. The ban left dreams shattered and communities divided, with many asking how compassion could collide so painfully with national policy. Back home, Sri Lankan families who saw Canada as a beacon of hope now felt stranded. Some applicants were genuinely fleeing hardship, while others were swept into the system by agents promising easy pathways abroad. The blanket ban meant that even those with valid reasons for seeking safety were now caught in limbo. Human rights groups sounded the alarm, warning that closing the door could put vulnerable lives at risk. Yet for Canada, the pressure to act decisively felt impossible to ignore as public opinion hardened. What followed was a sobering realization about the limits of even the strongest international friendships. Once seen as a rising source of dedicated workers and promising students, Sri Lanka's image was clouded by suspicion. Canadian agricultural leaders felt the sting of labor shortages, while Sri Lankan families faced the harsh reality of opportunity lost. In the end, both nations found themselves grappling with difficult questions about fairness, safety, and the delicate balance between open arms and secure borders. Number 7. Vietnam. Few countries have seen their educational ambitions grow as rapidly as Vietnam's, making Canada a top destination for eager students. But in 2025, a sudden spotlight landed on a surge of ghost schools, fraudulent institutions offering fake Canadian admission letters for a fee. Stories spread like wildfire of hopeful Vietnamese students deceived by shady consultants, their dreams of studying in Canada turning into heartbreak. The crackdown was swift and far-reaching, leaving not only scammers exposed but legitimate students in limbo. Families and communities that had pinned their hopes on international education were left searching for answers. For Vietnamese youth, studying abroad is often seen as a path to a brighter future, and Canada's reputation for welcoming students made it especially attractive. The discovery of widespread fraud, however, cast a long shadow over those aspirations. Honest applicants caught up in the sweeping ban suddenly faced an uncertain road with little recourse. Vietnamese officials scrambled to restore confidence, promising to regulate the industry and protect their students. Meanwhile, Canadian universities felt the loss of one of their most dynamic international communities. This episode revealed just how vulnerable even the best-intentioned plans can be to exploitation. As governments on both sides worked to plug the gaps, conversations shifted from blame to solutions. Many wondered if this challenge would inspire a more transparent and secure system for future students or simply drive ambitious Vietnamese minds to seek opportunity elsewhere. The lessons of 2025 left both nations with much to ponder about trust, oversight, and the high stakes of global education. Number 6. Nepal. High in the Himalayas, Nepal's youth have long looked outward for opportunity. But 2025 brought an unexpected barrier. Canadian officials noticed an uptick in refugee resettlement claims from Nepal, many suspiciously similar in their stories and details. It quickly became clear that certain agents were coaching applicants to exaggerate their cases, hoping to exploit Canada's welcoming system. The resulting ban left genuine refugees in limbo, their hopes dashed alongside those of countless students and workers. Families who had invested everything in the promise of a new beginning found themselves back at square one, caught in the fallout of others' deception. The sudden cutoff sent shockwaves through both countries, upending the dreams of many hardworking people. Canadian universities and businesses accustomed to the diligence and work ethic of Nepali newcomers felt the absence keenly as debate raged over how best to preserve the integrity of immigration programs. Voices from both sides pleaded for fairness. Nepali community leaders argued that a few bad actors should not define an entire nation, while Canadian policymakers struggled to strike a balance between compassion and caution. The lines between opportunity and opportunism had rarely seemed so thin. Number 5. Indonesia. Indonesia's digital economy is booming. But in 2025, its rapid online growth took an unexpected turn in Canadian headlines. A series of sophisticated cybercrime and financial scams were traced back to networks operating out of Indonesia, targeting unsuspecting Canadians from coast to coast. The response from Ottawa was firm: a broad ban on travel and migration, sparking instant debate. This decision stunned both business leaders and families, especially those with deep personal or professional ties between the two nations. Suddenly, trusted connections and promising collaborations were thrown into uncertainty. For years, the Indonesian-Canadian relationship thrived on vibrant trade, shared technology, and mutual respect. Indonesian entrepreneurs and professionals played key roles in Canadian tech and startup sectors, contributing fresh ideas and energy. Now, with the ban in place, tech companies on both sides of the Pacific scrambled to adjust to the new reality. Many worried that a sweeping response would do more harm than good, punishing honest innovators for the actions of a hidden few. As the days passed, frustration grew and calls for a more nuanced, targeted approach became louder. Amid all the turmoil, one thing became clear: global trust is fragile in the digital age. Both governments pledged to ramp up cybersecurity cooperation and work together on stopping transnational crime. Yet, behind the headlines, families, students, and entrepreneurs wondered when normalcy would return. The Indonesia-Canada ban became a stark reminder of how quickly progress can be disrupted and how essential it is to balance security with openness in our interconnected world. Number 4. Philippines. The Filipino spirit is renowned for resilience and hard work, and nowhere was this more evident than in the bustling communities of Canada. But in 2025, a dramatic labor dispute brought everything to a halt when claims of widespread exploitation of Filipino temporary workers hit the headlines. Stories of unfair wages and mistreatment led to public outcry, prompting Ottawa to impose a sweeping ban. Instantly, families were separated, and industries that relied on Filipino workers, from healthcare to hospitality, found themselves in crisis. The news sent shockwaves through both nations, sparking protests and urgent calls for reform. Within days, both Manila and major Canadian cities saw rallies demanding justice for the workers who had contributed so much. Community leaders argued that the ban punished the very people who helped build Canada's economy and culture. Employers struggled to replace the skilled, reliable workforce that Filipinos had provided for years. The situation drew global attention, shining a harsh light on the treatment of migrant workers everywhere. In the background, families worried about their futures and the dreams that suddenly seemed out of reach. As governments scrambled for solutions, a bigger conversation began to emerge about fairness, dignity, and the real price of labor. Both nations faced tough questions: how to protect workers without shutting down opportunity, and how to rebuild trust after such a painful rift. The Philippines-Canada ban quickly became a defining moment, challenging leaders to rethink their approaches and promising that out of crisis, something better might yet be built. The impact was felt far and wide, proving just how closely our stories are linked in today's world. Number 3. Thailand. The vibrant pulse of Thailand's cities is matched only by the adventurous spirit of its people, many of whom dreamt of new beginnings in Canada. In 2025, those dreams hit an unexpected wall when Canada uncovered a troubling trend: a sharp rise in tourists overstaying their visas and blending quietly into Canadian life. Authorities acted quickly, fearing a growing underground population, and introduced a sweeping ban on Thai entries. Overnight, popular Thai restaurants, cultural festivals, and family-run businesses across Canada felt the absence. For countless Canadians, the friendly faces and flavors of Thailand suddenly became memories rather than everyday connections. The impact rippled far beyond the travel industry. Thai entrepreneurs and skilled workers who had built lasting bridges in Canadian communities were left in limbo. Hospitality and culinary sectors, already stretched thin, scrambled to fill roles previously held by hard-working Thais. For Canadian families, the pain was personal, as reunions and family milestones became distant hopes. The ban didn't just close doors, it paused countless stories, dreams, and investments in both countries. This dramatic shift forced both nations to take a closer look at the complex reality of global mobility. Conversations about fairness, opportunity, and responsibility became more urgent, pushing leaders to seek better solutions. As both Canada and Thailand navigated the aftermath, one thing was clear: genuine partnerships require both open hearts and secure borders. The lessons of this episode echoed in communities from Vancouver to Bangkok, reminding everyone how quickly the tides of migration can change. Number 2. Pakistan. Pakistan's deep-rooted connections with Canada have always been a source of pride and opportunity. But in 2025, those bonds were put to a tough test. A string of high-profile visa overstays and reports of suspected criminal activity pushed Canadian officials to act decisively, implementing a broad ban on Pakistani entries. The move rattled the vast Pakistani-Canadian community. Tensions rose as politicians and community leaders debated the fairness and long-term impact of the decision. What once felt like a seamless bridge now appeared fragile, with trust hanging in the balance. For many families, the ban meant empty seats at the dinner table and milestones celebrated apart. The textile and IT sectors, which had long benefited from dynamic Pakistani partnerships, faced immediate disruptions. Students who had been accepted into top Canadian universities were left in limbo, unsure if they would ever get the chance to pursue their ambitions abroad. Across both nations, a sense of uncertainty took root, with people on both sides hoping for a resolution that would restore opportunity without compromising safety. As the dust settled, both governments began searching for common ground, realizing that long-standing ties couldn't be rebuilt overnight. The experience forced difficult conversations about security, integration, and the responsibilities that come with global movement. While headlines focused on politics, real people, entrepreneurs, students, and families, felt the true cost of separation. The Pakistan-Canada ban became a powerful reminder that every policy decision echoes far beyond paperwork, touching lives in ways that statistics never can. Number 1. India. India's story with Canada has always been one of deep ties, ambition, and vibrant communities. But 2025 brought an unexpected storm. Allegations of interference in Canadian internal affairs triggered a sweeping ban on Indian entries, sending shockwaves through both nations. The move was headline news, instantly impacting families, students, and business leaders across the country. Overnight, bustling university campuses, thriving IT hubs, and close-knit neighborhoods felt the absence of Indian voices and energy. The ripple effects reached every corner of society, leaving millions to wonder how quickly opportunity can turn into uncertainty. Indian Canadians who had built lives, businesses, and cultural bridges suddenly faced a new reality. Students accepted into Canadian institutions, professionals waiting for work permits, and families hoping for reunification saw their plans unravel. Major events and community celebrations paused as leaders called for calm and understanding. Amidst rising diplomatic tensions, both governments traded sharp words. But it was everyday people who felt the weight of separation most deeply. The trust and goodwill nurtured over decades seemed to hang by a thread. As both countries navigated this unprecedented challenge, difficult questions rose to the surface. Could old partnerships survive new suspicions? And would young dreams find new ground to grow? In the streets of Toronto and Mumbai, people waited for answers, hoping for the day borders would open and friendships could flourish once again. The India-Canada ban became a defining chapter, proof that global ties, no matter how strong, are always vulnerable to the winds of change. What do you think? Was Canada right to make these bold moves, or did they go too far and risk losing more than they gained? Tell me which country's story surprised you most and why. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? If you want more eye-opening content, click the video on your screen and don't forget to share this with someone who needs to understand how global decisions shape real lives.